Hey guys, this is Eric Neal here, the Skip Tracer. I'm here with long-haired Lefty, and he is a YouTuber that I came across fairly recently, doing videos, commentary videos on different videos that have to do with collections and lawsuits and everything. And we are going to be discussing a video today, how to sue debt collectors with Jamboree James. It's a pretty long video, but don't worry, we're not going to be reacting to the whole hour-long session. We went ahead and got different timestamps, so we're going to play those timestamps. And long-haired Lefty, do you want to introduce yourself?
Jeff is fine, but sure.
Okay, I didn't want to say your name without permission. You know, I forgot to ask that. Do I expose this person's name, or
No. Yeah.
Your background.
I've done collections for over 20 years, not consecutively. That's why I joke in my videos about I have over 20 non-consecutive years of collection experience. I started out working in a family collection agency in 1988 and worked there for about 10 or 11 years. And then I worked at a logistics company in-house doing collections. I worked for a long distance company doing collections. And I worked for another, I guess it was a family owned, it was more of a corporate collection agency that had several offices in 3 states, and did that from 2011 to 2016. And
all right.
I've been out of that business since 2016, but I came across one of these, don't pay collection videos one day just randomly after not even having seen any, having had nothing to do with collections in 6-7 years, and just was amazed at all the wrong information. And so I started making videos about it.
And a lot of it's sort of like recycled information too, which is crazy. It's just they keep recycling the same crap over and over again. They don't put any research into it.
Right.
So I forgot to say mine. My experience, if you don't know, if you're on Facebook, you probably know. But my experience is I started collections in 2005. I went right into the litigation department of an agency in Massachusetts, and it was very heavy on the skip tracing. Found I had a knack for it. I mean, I was pretty good at the collections too, but I had a knack for the skip tracing. It's really what excelled me through different agencies. And I worked a bunch of different agencies where, you start doing good. I don't know if you got this, Jeff, but you start doing good, and then they switch your bonus plan around, so they get a little more richer, you get a little more poorer. Yeah, so, you go to another agency. And I did that for a while. In 2010, I opened up my own agency. Wasn't exactly making it, right off the bat. So had to work a few other places here and there, contract jobs. And then finally, in about 2012, I got enough that I could actually live off the money I was making. And then I just continued. And slowly, my agency went from smiling and dialing and calling debtors every day to actually just handling the investigative aspect of the recovery. So whether it's judgments or it's regular broken contracts and everything, I've handled that. And I also went over into different fields like consulting for private investigators, some law enforcement, and doing courses and such. So just kind of changing it up a little bit, but always the bulk of my experience comes from litigation-based collections, judgments, a little commercial collections involved. All right, so if there's no more of the intro, do you want to just jump right into the video?
Sure.
Okay, so we are going to start. We're going to let this guy introduce himself and say who he is, what his experience is. So that's at about the 3-minute.
I understand you're an entrepreneur, business person, all that, but what was you doing before that? Before you led to this point?
So I was in accounting. I used to audit state and federal credit unions.
Okay.
I did that for.
What does that mean for when people hear that and they're like, "What the hell?"
So the person who walk in the bank and pull your loan file and make sure everything right. So make sure the books balance out. Make sure most of these companies are crossing their I's and dotting their T's. Ain't nobody embezzling funds, stuff like that.
Okay. And then how long did you do that?
I did that for almost 4 years.
Okay.
And then I transitioned from that into doing the same thing for government entities.
Okay. So. And then you transitioned from that to doing it on your own.
Yeah, to doing it on my own. Yep. Started doing it for myself for small businesses, and then that kind of got me into the credit repair space and got me into like suing debt collectors and just helping consumers on an everyday basis. Because I'm gonna just be honest with you, most people they get that paperwork from a company and they getting sued. They be like, oh shit, I ain't gonna say nothing. And that's one of the worst things to ever do, because if you don't say anything, you basically admitting guilt. So
okay, so that was his background, and I'll point out right there that it is a decent background where he says if you don't say anything, though, you're admitting guilt. That's false. You're not admitting guilt. Like, you might get a default judgment, but you are not actually admitting guilt.
I agree. But that's probably one of the only correct pieces of information that's on this video is him saying ignoring it is one of the worst things you can do, because that is correct.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to ignore it.
Just helping people that look like me and you really understand that process and understand that they can take their power back and understand it's literally just a contract. They're inviting you into contract when they bring you to court and stuff like that. So just making sure people understand that and understand their.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I don't exactly know what he means there. You're not inviting them into a contract. You're pursuing legal action in regards to a broken contract. So I'm not 100% sure what he's talking about.
This language that he's using, when I sent you the link originally, you remember I said a lot of this stuff sounds like sovereign citizen nonsense.
Yeah, it's almost like a belief system, and they want to have the belief system with credit and collections. It's like, I respect your right to have a belief system. Like, I try to be open about a lot of things. Like, I respect your right, but when it comes to the court, they're not going to respect your right, or they're not going to respect what you're saying at all, and you're going to be laughed out of court on that one. And I want to point out too, and this won't be this video. This will be maybe some further videos, future videos, but. We looked into this guy a little bit, and I don't know if we should say this now or until after the video, but
yeah, we'll save that for the end. That's what I said.
Yeah, we'll save for the end about the legitimacy behind some of the things or where he's coming from, and we'll wait to the end for that. It's a good hook for the end, I guess. But
the biggest reason for somebody to do it, first of all, we'll just say, hypothetically speaking, I had a credit card when I was younger, 22, 23.
Right.
And
it's killing me that we're going to wait to the end on this about his Navy Federal Credit Union issues, but I'll just let it go.
And, I might have been irresponsible. And
but let's just say it's not hypothetically.
We'll just say Navy Federal, for instance, charged that credit card off. So they charge it off. Now you got that charge off on your credit report, and you thinking it's over with. Navy Federal turns around and reaches out to, we'll just say, one of so-and-so debt collection LLC, and Navy Federal gives them all your non-public information. Your name, your address, your social stuff they're not supposed to have.
Well, okay, let's just stop there, because there's a minute of really bad data here, so I don't want to forget things. Information they're not supposed to have. I mean, what information are you giving them when you sign up? You're giving them your social. You're giving them your phone numbers, your POE, or your place of employment. You're giving them. So what do you mean they're not supposed to have that? You're giving them all this information to be able to open an account, to get credit extended, to basically spend money that's not yours and then pay it back. But what do you mean, like, not supposed to have?
Well, I can answer that question. He's claiming that the collection agency is not supposed to have that information because he didn't enter it into any contract with the collection agency. He entered into it with the Navy Federal Credit Union. So, but
of course,
people keep forgetting that there's somewhere in the contract that, assignees may contact you on their behalf, regarding collections, payments, anything like that. It's just like the point I brought up in one of my videos, the T-Mobile user agreement. And that similar language is present in every single credit card application.
Yeah, I have never seen one where it's not, where they can have an attorney, they can have a collection agency, they can have a representing party reach out to you in regards, because some of these places will have first-party collections or customer service rep, but not dedicated collections. So sometimes they do, but other times they'll have third-party agencies on their behalf, and then they can solve that, and that's a different story too. But yeah, so when he says they're not supposed to have, they are supposed to have that, because when we buy, I don't want to get into the whole debt buying thing too much, but when I have purchased portfolios, and I don't think you have, right? Because you never worked on that end of things, right? With actually purchasing.
I was a collector, and I've done payments. I've been a assistant collection manager, that kind of thing. But I was not involved with any securing of clients or anything, or accounts or anything like that. So
all right, gotcha. Yeah. So with the purchasing of what we call we call it paper, but portfolios. I
understand the process and what's all involved and everything. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we would purchase it. We would get basically all the information that is from your account, the hard data, the social, the name, the phone number, all that. And then we would get, now back in the day, we had to order this separately, the statements or the media. The media is the supporting documentation. But we would get, but now it all comes Dropbox, it all comes Google Drive, is whatever. It's very easy to transmit. So we always get that. But that is information that we are supposed to have, because now, as you hear this guy say, and a lot of other people say on YouTube, when it comes like, oh, these agencies, they never have the media. And it's like, well, we do have the media, the supporting documentation. That's the point. But he's saying, oh, you're not supposed to have it. You are supposed to have it, because if you don't have it, you can't do your job effectively, and you could run into violations if you don't have the correct information. So it's like, anyway, I'm getting off on this thing, but we'll continue.
When they do that, they sell it to them for, we'll just say you owe $8,000. They might sell it to them for $2,000.
Right.
Then that
No, they won't. Well, if they're selling it, they're not spending $2,000 on an $8,000 debt. Not even close.
companies now,
Even on prime debt, they're not spending that much money. That's insane.
reaching out to the bureaus and putting out on your credit report saying you owe them $8,000 when
You ain't never did none
never did
transaction with them.
not one transaction with them. So really just understanding like, hey, this on my credit report, I didn't give you permission to put this here. I've never done a contract with you.
Yeah. So as you said, Jeff, he did get permission, because it's in it's all the people that you see the money, you see the opportunity to get a company's money and spend that money, and then hopefully pay them back. Yet no one ever reads the fine print, and the fine print is there so they can cover themselves. They have lawyers, like multiple lawyers, big attorney firms that write up the shit for them, and it's all in there to protect themselves. It's not like, oh shit, did we forget to say that we could report it to the bureau?
Wannabe lawyers, they think that they right.
Yeah,
Somebody's been watching Suits for too long. Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's like, oh, did we forget to put in the language, the legal language, that we couldn't do this? No, of course they didn't forget. You just didn't read it. So let's see here. All right.
Information, and it goes to so and so debt collection company, and they reaching out to me. Like I said, now they're trying to extort me for an extension of credit, which is that's a hefty fine here in the United States. 18 USC 894. So I kind of had a conversation. When I'm reaching out to the CFO or CEO, whoever's in charge of these collection agencies, I just kind of let them know, hey, look, I've never done business with you. So
let me stop right there. You're very rarely reaching out to a CFO or CFO. Collectors are under no obligation to patch you through to the owner of the company. And I've gone that. I don't know if you've gone that, but I want to talk to the manager, certainly, but I want to talk to the owner of the business. I want to talk to the attorneys. Like, no,
You can get your full Karen on all you want, but you're not going to necessarily get that's for sure.
Yeah, we're not going to patch you through to the manager. You can send an email or something, but we're not going to patch you through to the owner. The owner doesn't have time to speak to everyone that has a problem with their debt or a problem with everything, or someone that wants to cite law to them or something. Like the owner of an agency, are you kidding me? I mean, we're working collections. We're already a bunch of assholes working there. We're not gonna, I don't know. We're not gonna put you through to the owner. That's a good way to get fired. Owner, this debtor has a problem. They want to cite law to you. So I'm just going to stop what you're doing today and talk to this random debtor that wants to sit there and cite law and tell you why you're wrong. And no. So
if you can't provide me with the official affidavit of debt, bill of sale, all the accounting records showing, from A to Z how I owe you this money, there's nothing we can do here. Right. So, have that conversation. I don't get rude and disrespectful with them until they be like, oh, well, unless you pay it, there's nothing we can do. Okay, cool.
So every state has every state has laws on there's generally what you need to provide in a verification of debt or validation of debt, but every state has laws on, when it comes to court, what you need to actually prove. So we don't need to prove to their satisfaction. We need to prove to the court satisfaction, right?
Right.
Hypothetically, they get a letter in the mail saying you owe this person. Then the next step is that they send out a letter back to them saying,
yeah. So if I'm the person who got that letter, I'll send out a letter back. I don't ask for debt validation or anything like that. I want you to prove it, which some people consider it as validation, but
right.
I want you to prove it. Show me how I owe you. Show me where you bought this debt. Show me that you are the original due holder in course of this debt. Show me my contract with you. Show me the accounting records from the time I opened this transaction with you until now that proves I owe you. They can't do that. And then
Actually, in most cases, every time. Now, I was a very small agency when I opened up, and I had 5 people working for me, one manager, and me. And then it was anytime someone asked for what he's asking for, very, very easy to provide. If like way back in the day, we'd have to go request that information. Sometimes we decide it wasn't worth it, but we had to go request that information, pay like $5, $10 or something, depending. But even when I started, again, all on a Google Drive, all Dropbox, CD-ROM. If I mean, some kids might not know what a CD-ROM is. I hope they do. But all on a USB stick or whatever data transfer item. They just it's very, very easy to get. Now, we don't usually have to provide all the accounting on all the checks and everything, paid and everything. If you want to try to challenge that in court, you can. But the other stuff, what he said, is essentially a validation of debt and providing the chain of title, the COT. The chain of title is basically where the debt started and where the agencies it went to, almost like a bill of sale on a car. That's essentially what a COT or chain title is. So that's all. That is very, very easy to come up with. Now he says like they can't come up with it. Yeah, we can. It's incredibly easy. How many times have you had people that have asked you to? I mean, I haven't had it a lot, but it happens.
Well, most of the time when people are asking for copies of the bills, we consider that a stall tactic, because 90% of the time people know they owe the bill and they're just trying to get out of paying as long as they can. Mm-hmm. Not judging, just saying that's what happens. I've done it myself, But even back in the 80s and 90s when I first started, most of our clients sent over supporting documentation. And again, we weren't buying debts. We were contingency fee. The company I worked for did buy some medical debts late towards the end of my tenure there, but yeah, buying of debts was just not a thing that we did. But either way, whether you buy it or rent it, it's coming up with the supporting documentation is no problem. And as far as your accounting records that he's requesting, well, that shows every time you make a payment. If you don't make a payment, well, there's no accounting records to show.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Now that you did make a payment, there's our accounting records.
Maybe he's talking about some.
I don't know what else.
Maybe he's talking about some of the old stuff, like his payments that he made. And basically, I feel like a lot of people that use this, that say these things, they want it's like you need to, as you said, stall tactic, but you need to prove to their satisfaction everything. And at the end of the day, you're never going to prove it to their satisfaction because that one.
Oh, I find out.
Turn around and hit them with a lot of case law. A case that I use all the time, Spears versus Brennan, Court of Indiana, 1996. Was a court case where a debt collector got a default judgment against a consumer. The consumer basically filed and was able to get the default judgment removed, but also got the court case dropped, and then he turned around and hit them with a counterclaim as well, because the simple fact that what are they going to send you? Most of the time they're going to send you your contract, or they're going to send you billing statements. Billing statements are not documentary evidence. All they show, literally in that court case, it lays it out. All billing.
Okay, so I looked up the Spears case. I don't have my notes on me now. I don't know what I did with them, but I looked up the Spears case, and that wasn't what happened. Generally it was challenged, and there was specific challenges. I mean, I can get into that in another video, but it was challenged, and there was certain admissions, and there were certain things that passed and certain things that didn't pass, and it wasn't just like, oh, this case happened here, and they were able to get out of this, and then go back to the collection agency. He's leaving a lot out of there. And it was a lengthy process. There was a lot of money spent and on both sides. And the court ruled somewhat in the collection agency's favor and somewhat in the debtor's favor. But it wasn't just like, oh, I did this case and got out of my debt and sued that. No, there was so much more to it, like so much more.
I just don't understand what they're trying to do. Are they actively suggesting that people go out, rack up $8,000-$10,000 worth of credit card debt, not pay it, and then just say, prove that I bought these items? I mean, how hard is it? Okay, well, here we have where this transaction occurred on this card at Walmart. If we have to go to Walmart and get security footage showing you making this transaction, I guess we can do that. But how hard is that to do? I mean,
yeah, I mean, I mean, and then you go back to the original purchases and you see the purchases. I mean, there's things that, like, if you really wanted to dig into it, you could go to Facebook and see the person driving around their vehicle that they purchased. You drive, or like adding this new entertainment system sitting in front of it on their Facebook, and like, so that's not your Facebook? No, that's not you in that big screen TV that I see right here on the credit card statement. Because back when we were doing this with MySpace, there were things posted, but not as much as Facebook is everyone's portal to post every single thing about their life. Which, as a skip tracer, I say go for it. As a human being, I'm like, you guys are crazy, and I'm very selective over what I post. I post a lot, but I'm selective.
Well, I'm a strong believer that if you publish all your public information willingly, and anybody who has your name can look it up, then it's fair game. Now,
Yeah.
the last agency I worked for, we were under the control of the bank that was our client, and we had to do what they say. And we were not allowed to look up Facebook postings or any social media accounts on anyone. Now, we were allowed to Google their name, and I found somebody not on a social media site per se, but they were on it was a forum. It was a rate a date forum, and some people had some not nice things to say about this person, and they mentioned where they worked right there on the opening article. I mean, I didn't even have to dig into the page, and I called the guy and verified him and got a big payment out of it. But it's just, it's the hoops we had to jump through. It's like, well, I mean, gosh, all I got to do is go to Facebook, and if he publishes his information, why can't we use it? But they didn't want us to do that because that's not fair, they said. So
no. And hey, not sponsored here, Post, but I do want to like throw in a little plug here. I am working on it for all you investigators out there. I am working on a POE course, a place of employment locate course. It's been really requested. I did a FOIA course, I did an AI course, I did this and that, but I've always not done the place of employment course just because there's a lot to it. And but I'm trying to build that course, so just keep an eye out because I'll have it in the groups, I'll have it on my page, and it'll be about a 2-hour course on how to locate somebody's employment, and based on what he just said, based on a lot of other things. So go over all that. Anyway, that's my only advertisement plug for the day.
It's hard to get out of those collector abbreviations, POE and
yeah, I gotta remind myself not to say that. But all right, so let's continue. The next part was oh no, it's still going to 1017. So yeah, we're still going.
The statement show is your quote unquote your running balance, right? But it doesn't show me the accounting records. The original contract only shows what your interest rate and how much the such a credit card or car or whatever they're suing you for was worth. It doesn't show the accounting records, so therefore it's not proper validation. No,
it is proper validation. It's not proper validation in your head. But we're not talking about your head. We're talking about a court. So
I just feel like he's confusing people with this terminology. It's not proper validation. Well, what is proper validation?
Proper validation is what the court in your state and perhaps county, but what your state law says is proper. So don't listen to me. Don't listen to this guy. Go explore with the state what proper validation is on a debt. So it doesn't matter what I tell you. It doesn't matter what Jeff tells you. It doesn't matter what this guy tells you. It matters what your state tells you. And that's what you need to do. You need to look at the facts. You can't be listening to these individuals. This guy got, in 6 months, 4.5 thousand views. A lot of these other collection channels or like credit guru channels are going to get hundreds of thousands of views, which is really scary because you get people listening to them. It's like, again, don't listen to me. Don't listen to him. Don't listen to this guy. Go explore the state laws for yourself and go find out, because if you listen to him and you go to court and you're unprepared, you're thinking you're going to win this because you are not satisfied with the debt validation, you're in for a rude awakening. So go check it out with the state. And by the way, a lot of these credit gurus, I just want to point out, they are selling you something. They are selling you. I mean, I'm selling a place of employment course to the investigators, but I'm not selling anything to the state.
You're selling a course, and that's what they're doing. They're selling a course, but I'm here to tell you that the information that they're providing for free is very suspect. So I certainly wouldn't recommend paying for any.
Yeah, if you're going to listen to free information, validate. So talk about validation. Validate that information. Compare it to your state law. Compare it to federal law. When he mentions a case, go explore the case and see what's up with that case. Because if he can't tell information freely, or if the information he tells for free is false, then you're really going to go buy something for him and pay money to him. You know, so I mean, if he can't get it right with the free stuff, you think he's going to get it right with the paid stuff? Come on.
Because it's not proper it basically, just sum up in conclusion before we go too deep, it's not proper validation of this debt, right?
To you.
So when you use that, when I'm requesting all this stuff and I'm requesting your license to collect in my state, because most of the time a lot of these debt collection companies, they don't have a license to collect in your state.
Yeah, and by the way, we don't have to provide you a license. You can go. That's not part of validation either. We don't have to provide you shit. You can go look it up for yourself. And certainly challenge it with the AG's office if they don't have proper licensing. Although understand that there are agencies, just because they're not licensed in the state, like with Florida, there's a separate license that. Back when I was doing it, was like $100 license to collect, even if you, as like a foreign license type thing, almost like a foreign entity with the Secretary of State. But there are things to that. But yeah, we don't have to provide that to you. You can go explore it for yourself. We don't have to do your.
Virginia is very hostile to outside collection agencies, and you do have to have a West Virginia license to be able to call a West Virginia residence.
Mm-hmm.
And every agency I worked at, every time we had a West Virginia account, if somebody moved, we got a change of address, West Virginia, it got shipped out somewhere else because we did not even mess with it. We didn't have a West Virginia license. It got to where it wasn't even the company. Each individual collector had to be licensed in West Virginia. So it's really West Virginia. Their state motto is open for business, but they're not really.
And I would say too, understand when you're looking at that type of thing, understand what the agency is doing too, because you have collections, you have skip tracing. They could be forwarding it out to an attorney and not actually attempting collections. And in some states, there's going to be certain exemptions. So you got to make sure to look at the exemptions. Florida is very confusing exemptions. Some states you can do commercial collection, but you can't do a consumer collection. Some states you can engage in a collection activity, but you can't engage in calling. Massachusetts has a whole bunch of things too. So you got to be careful and you got to look at the exemptions too.
Right.
But
state, when I'm requesting all the stuff that I know you can't provide, and I used to look at loans, so now I know.
Okay, loans isn't collections. Collections is more of an adversarial process, but loans is not. I dated someone for a while that was in the like loan origination type thing. It is a completely different ballgame. It's not the same set of laws that apply. There are some similar laws, but I thought, oh great, we could have conversations about these things. Nope, completely different.
Right.
Two different sides of
where the whole collection you start out with a loan, credit card, or you wrote a bad check, or you had a medical bill. It started out as something, then it turned into collections, and that's a whole different process.
Yeah. So I'm not saying his experience is bad, but it's different. You can't apply a lot of that stuff. Yeah, exactly. You can't apply a lot of it to collections. So 15 seconds talking about an attorney.
At this point, as an attorney, you basically, in this case, you stating that you have firsthand knowledge of my account, but you weren't there when
you went right.
You weren't there. So what are you really doing here?
That's great.
Do you have an equitable?
Yeah. So that's or was I gonna say? Do you have
interest in this case?
Yeah. So his thing on if an attorney has specific knowledge about like firsthand knowledge, like was he there in the room, and that's a defense in court. Like, are you on drugs right now? Because that's not a defense in court. Like, if you go to court and you say to the judges, like, was that attorney there when I signed the contract? Was he there when I was in my living room and I wrote the check and the payment was late, but I made it? Was he there? So it's like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, what are you talking about? That's you don't. There's a stuff as the video goes on and on. It just gets crazier and crazier. It's like, were you there? Do you have firsthand knowledge? Were you there when I signed it? It's like, where do you sign it? In your living room? Like, what do you? No, he wasn't there. And attorneys are representing the plaintiff in the case. They don't have to be there. Like, think about do I have to even explain this stuff? Like, think about any case out there. Does the attorney have to be there when the bank robber went into the bank? It's like, oh, well, you have firsthand knowledge. How can you talk about the situation? Because you're representing the parties at hand. I don't know.
Yeah. Again, it gets back to, were you there when I bought this TV? Or did you see me buy this TV? Can you prove that I bought this TV?
I saw how to fish. I just lead to the lake.
I lead to the lake.
That's it.
For the 3 times that you had to do it personally, did you have to go to court all 3 times?
The first time I did, and that was when I took the L. The
Okay.
second time, the attorney didn't show up. The third time, we didn't even make it to court. So once I started, really, like I said, really understanding what to ask for, what exhibits to bring with me, what case law to use to protect myself so that there's no rebuttal that you can come back from as an attorney or as that company. Once I started doing that, but some attorneys will try to hit you with, "Oh, you practicing law." But if my client never signed a power of attorney and I'm just advising them and I'm never in the picture,
Yeah, you
no liability.
Because I could.
Yeah, it sounds like he actually is trying to practice law without a license. He's trying to skirt around it. And he's kind of admitted to it. I just don't have you sign a power of attorney and I don't show up in court, but I'm telling you what to do. I mean,
yeah. I mean, you can advise things. Like I always tell my clients, my investigator clients, and my attorney clients, and just actually anyone that really hires me, that, hey, I'm not an attorney, but this is the strategy that I would use in this situation. But that's the strategy that I would use, and even a litigation-based strategy based on my experience. But it depends on I think it really depends on how far you bring it. And if you are advising them on very specific court strategy and what to do and what to file, a lot of states are going to take issue with that.
Well, he never, in anywhere in this video, does he say what kind of, how he's suing a collection agency based on what? Did they violate the FDCPA in some way? Or is he just suing them because you're collecting this account? I don't believe that you have the right to.
On one, there was one occasion where he had stated, I don't have the timestamp on it, but there was one occasion where he had stated that, where he had stated that he is, although never provide any evidence or case law or anything we can look up, but that he had purchased the debt from a debtor, and then and then he was able to sue on that one. Now, as I was saying to you off camera, I've never heard, like, you can purchase someone's vehicle and have the bill of sale, but you weren't now granted, on the flip side, I can purchase a debt and courts have ruled that that's okay already. They're like plenty of courts, but to actually purchase, like if you owe T-Mobile money and I can say, hey, I am the new Jeff here, I am the new debtor and whatever. I've never, in all my years of doing this, 18 years, I've never seen anyone do that. I've never heard of it. All the credit settlement companies, if the credit settlement companies could do that, if they were like, especially the litigious ones, if they could do that, they'd be doing that. I've never heard of anyone being able to do that. So I'd love to see if this guy can come up with case law, I'd love to see that.
The closest thing I've ever dealt with that, the last agency I worked at, we all the time had people calling, trying to pay their son or daughter's, their child's credit card, who was, 18, 20 years old. We can't talk to their parent because they're an adult and I've got to have their permission to talk to you, even to take a payment. They wouldn't even say, can I just make a payment for whatever and you apply however much, and if there's a refund, send me, ma'am, I can't do that. I can't even discuss that I have business dealings with your son or daughter.
It is very, very.
I just don't see how you can purchase someone's debt. I mean, you can have somebody sign a power of attorney, and now I can discuss this debt with a third party. If he wants to make payments on your behalf or whatever, sure. If he wants to discuss it, I'll listen to it. But I'm under no obligation, unless he's a legitimate company trying to actually handle this debt. But if he's just Jamari James with a piece of paper and he wants to talk about Cindy Lou's debt, well, I'll listen to what he's got to say. But if, I don't know. It's just a weird situation. I don't see how he's the new debtor.
I would love to see some case law on that.
Sign a power of attorney, in which case he just said earlier, if I'm not getting anybody to sign power of attorney, somewhere a debtor has to give a collector permission for him to talk to this collector on their behalf.
So even if he does a third-party transaction later or something outside of our view, like if he doesn't get permission, he just says, hey, I purchased the debt and here's a signature. It's like, well, it seems like you're trying to set me up for a lawsuit right now. So I'm not going to acknowledge this debt to you. I'm just going to say that we have a matter in our office with Joe Schmo. If Joe Schmo gives us permission to talk to you about said matter, then I will, and it's on a recorded line, and
we were allowed to say personal business matter or personal matter.
Yeah, if that's the case, and then I will. And I have people try to trip me up all the time too, and just like, knock on wood, no lawsuits, no nothing. Recorded line. I'd rather just be safe than sorry and not get fired from my job because, or when I own my agency, not sued. But guys, if you're watching this video, we do plan on some later videos. I know Jeff wanted to go a little later. Personally, my sleep has been crazy out of whack. The investigators that might be watching this, you know how it is. We get you get a case, and then everything's quiet. You get one case, it's like, all right. You got another case, it's like, all right. You got 5 cases, and it's like, oh well, sleep is a luxury I don't have right now, because you want to get that money in,
Any kind of like.
Yeah.
Oh, I worked at a dealership. That's not how it works. Yeah, you're thinking about it from your dealership job. You're not thinking about it from the perspective of a consumer and how a consumer law actually works. So, man, the biggest thing, man, is just I gotta see receipts. I don't regurgitate anything I haven't done or speak on anything I haven't done. I only post receipts, and I feel like that's what's big. So
that was the thing.
Y'all out there, if y'all listen,
that's a good place.
Yeah.
Well, I already have stuff to say on that, but go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right, so. Yeah, I mean, this kind of goes into the end of it, but I looked on, I think it was like Oklahoma, but I looked at county case searches. If you're watching my stuff as usual, the things I do. But I looked at county case searches. I looked at Pacer. I looked at a few different things, and I saw the receipts. This guy should not be offering any sort of advice. Let's just say that this guy had a bankruptcy with $932. I don't know why I remember that. It's weird, but $932 in his checking account. I don't remember the last case I worked, but I remember what he had in his checking account. $932 in his checking account. He had like $300 or something in his bank account, and he was in his bank. Oh, and his bankruptcy was another weird thing. I remember October 27th or October something, 2022. And he owed every single bank in his area under the sun. Like a lot of banks in his area, a lot of national banks, and he owed a lot of money. Was barely bringing I think he said he was bringing in like $4,000 a month from the credit business here, but he owed a lot of money. All these different banks, everything. He wasn't able to get out of these things. Oklahoma, he did legitimately sue collection agencies. And I didn't look at all the cases, but of the ones I looked at, there was like one settlement or something. So I think the agency got tired of dealing with him because he had a bunch of continuances and it was costing them money. They had like one kind of a win, but not completely. And then the 3 that I looked at where he was suing agencies and actually an individual that he supposed allegedly owed money to, he lost every single one. So I have seen the receipts on this guy.
All right.
It's not good. You don't want to, in my opinion, you don't want to give this guy your money if he is, as he said in the beginning when he took the L on one case. It wasn't one case. It was a lot of cases that eventually led him into bankruptcy, and he's still taking that L on everything. Suing agencies, look, I am saying this from someone that has a lot of experience collections. Jeff has a lot of experience. I despise agencies that do shady shit. I despise that because you don't have to do that. You can treat people well, and I always did. And you can look me up. Neal and Associates, Affordable Financial Solutions, current company PIF Solutions, no lawsuits. I record all my lines. I mean, I'm not regularly calling people. I engage more with the skip tracing part, but with Neal and Associates and Affordable Financial Solutions, I had a couple complaints online, but you're never going to do anything about that. But it doesn't matter how nice you talk to people, but no lawsuits whatsoever because I recorded all my lines and I treated people well. Yeah.
The last story that I told on the video was about getting in trouble for, cussing on a phone call. Of course, that wasn't to a consumer. That was just on the recording because I was having a different conversation. But I never once got in trouble for hollering at somebody or, I'm not saying I didn't do it. I could have gotten in trouble for it, but, I tried to keep all that stuff to a bare minimum. In the last agency I worked for, they wouldn't have even tolerated that kind of thing. And I always said, I try to treat people how I would want my parents to be treated if they were in this similar situation. So that's how I approached my.
I have one quick story where I did get in trouble, and I almost got fired on like my very first job because I had was getting frustrated with like I was right. It was like on my first or second month where I was like almost making bonus, and then I had a debtor. I said something, I forget what it was, but it was something not great, and the my boss came over, took the phone, and just like slammed it down. I was like, you better hope that doesn't turn into a lawsuit, because if he does, you're out, and we don't cover. In most of the time, they don't cover employee. If they sue the employee directly, which they can do. But the guy actually, this was saving grace for me. The guy actually called back and apologized. He didn't pay, but he called back and he apologized. And he says, I'm not a deadbeat, or I'm not whatever. I just ran into this hard time. I promise I can pay next month, whatever. And he was like, I never expected that to happen. They were like, because that happened, you keep your job. If anything happens like that again, you're out for good. I'm like, okay, sorry. But that was like years and years ago. But I'm sure my haters going to use that against me now. Eric Neal broke the FTCPA 18 years ago, or something.
I do have one more shady collector story here to tell you.
Go for it.
Back at the first agency I worked at, we used aliases because we were mostly collecting local to my area, and aliases were not illegal at the time. I don't know if they are now.
Some states, yeah.
So in the early to mid 90s, we had a collector who he had some substance issues. We'll just say he got kicked out of his apartment or something. And apparently what he had done was went to a hotel, said, my boss said that they will cover this because my house caught on fire. Here's my boss's name, and gave them his alias. So when the hotel calls the next day, because he was in there after hours, they call at 8 o'clock in the morning, asked to speak to his alias. And of course, the call is transferred immediately to him, because that's all we do all day long is send calls to who they asked for. And the hotel goes, oh yeah, your employee said, oh sure, we'll cover it. So he stayed at this hotel for a week, and then he ended up just being a no-call, no-show after that. And then a month later, we started getting bills from this hotel, and that's when we found out what had happened.
Yeah,
that was a whole mess. But that's how shady people can get.
Eventually moved elsewhere, but it was people. People talk about all the horrible collectors and everything, but the collections does change you, and you can let it change you, and you cannot let it change you. Like the amount of people that we get that is always looking to sue us, like Marie Jones or something, or James, always looking to sue us. But the amount of people that we get that like. I'm sure we can't even say some of the stuff on Facebook, but the amount of threats that, I'm talking about actual, I am going to come to you and do this to you. The amount of threats that we got and everything, like you hear about all the bad collectors, but there's a lot more good collectors that treat people fairly and justly. And like, look, we're debtors too, we're consumers too. Like we're going to try to work with you to resolve it. But the amount of crap that we've got, and then stuff like, you never hear the stories about the little old grandmother just baking cookies and she comes out, fuck you, she's on the phone. But that shit happens, and it happens a lot, But then if it's the collector, you hear in the news, it's the evil collector calls little old grandmother baking cookies, not grandmother threatened to throw us in the oven. So this was a kind of a first go. I love talking about the investigation and the skip trace and all of that. And I will be creating kind of a mastermind as well on Facebook, or if any investigators, I got to put some planning into that. But I'm going to do something like that. But talk to other investigators out there, talk about cases, maybe react to things. So if you're interested in that, hit me up. But this credit collection thing, we both have pretty equal experience in the industry, coming from slightly different areas, but a lot of it the same. And we do want to cover a lot of other things, and we'll try to do it at a time when you guys are out of work, or a lot of you are out of work, and try to do it in the future at a better time. But if you have watched this, do me a favor, like the video, and I'm gonna let Jeff here put it on his YouTube channel without put the whole thing on it, whatever, and chop it up however you want, whatever you want to do. So go over to his channel. I will put that in the description or in the comments. Go over to his channel and give him a sub as well. So I think we'll end there.
All right.
All right, guys. Take it easy. We'll see you on the next one.